Hello, my name is Josiah Rea, and I'm going to show you how to import a Blender file into After Effects. Now, After Effects doesn't technically have native 3D support. It's what's called 2.5D. So when you have a 3D layer in After Effects, it's actually just kind of skewing it to make it look 3D, but it's not actually 3D, it's still 2D. However, using Photoshop, we can kind of bring Photoshop's ability to handle 3D objects into After Effects. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Here I am inside of Blender, and I've got this sword that I've created here. And I'm going to save this out and bring it into Photoshop. So let's go File, Save As, and I'm going to save this right to my desktop. And we want to, let me back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So back to before the save. So we're going to go to File, Export, and we're going to export this 3ds. Photoshop and Adobe products really like the 3D Studio Max file, so we're going to try to stick with that. And we're going to spit this right out onto the desktop, and we're just going to leave the default name sword. So, export. Now we're going to come into Photoshop, and we will open up that file. And you can see here that Photoshop has this kind of native 3D support for it, where we can move it all around and take a look at all different sides. So it's still a 3D object that we can move all around. So we're going to save this as a Photoshop project. And when we do that, we want to turn on maximize compatibility. And this is going to make sure that we can import it into After Effects correctly. So we said OK. We come into After Effects, and we're going to import that file. So import file, and find the PSD version of the sword. Say open. And here we've got some options that we need to make sure that we set correctly. Underneath, import what kind. We don't want it to be footage. We want it to be a composition, retain layer sizes. And if it's footage, basically it's going to take whatever Photoshop sees and squish it flat. Discard all of the data except the image data, and we don't want to do that at all. So select composition, retain layers. We want to make sure that these are editable layer styles, not merge layer styles into footage. Again, that's going to kind of get rid of the data that we want. And select this Live Photoshop 3D. This is actually the most important option to select. Like I said, After Effects doesn't have 3D support, but Photoshop does. So we're basically taking Photoshop's support and we're laying it on top of After Effects. So After Effects is using Photoshop code to look at this 3D object. So we say OK. And it's going to bring in the sword layers all individually and this sword composition. So let's open up the composition. And we can see the file just as we exported it. And it's got a couple of different things that's put down here, most notably this controller. And what we're going to do is I'm going to come into the transform and I'm going to reset it. Cut out that last part. Not going to do that. We can grab this rotation tool here, and you can see all the different axes in the 3D object, and we can rotate these around on the controller itself. And as we do that, you can watch that 3D object begin to rotate. So it's pretty cool stuff. Now you have a 3D object that's fully inside of After Effects that you can edit, and you can animate, and you can composite on top of footage with the same compositing tools that After Effects uses. I hope you've enjoyed this video on how to bring a Blender file into After Effects. I'm Josiah Rea.